What's going on? It's the WrestleMania week War Journal number 12. I was going to do it last night after I we got done with the Farewell to the Pawn Shop show, which took place at 81 Bay, as it turned out. But frankly, I was wiped out, and I knew I could do it this morning. No big deal. So today is WrestleMania, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm going yet because the people that were supposed to hook me up with the ticket that I was going to go with have not handled their obligations. And it's annoying and it's frustrating, and I just had to give out, like, here's the, I'm not even going to read you the text that I just sent. It looks like it's going to happen, though. I'm counting on it to happen. So that's cool. I'm also going to have lunch, very kind offer, from Steve Madison, who's a wrestler from back in the day, who actually performed on one of the shows that I helped with and did a great job. And just a real stand up dude and a real connected dude, really. And we're going to have lunch today because he just wanted to kind of get to know me better and say thank you for the work that I put in. This was a really great journey and a really interesting thing in the best way. My general impressions of the ICW show, was it disappointing that it didn't happen at the pawn shop? Absolutely. Though that I think that opens up the possibility that maybe they'll get to do a farewell to the pawn shop show later on, which I think would be really great. Um, but here's the main thing, like with the craziness of as I'm watching the noon show to hear, no, we're gonna have to end up doing it here because of the rain. And it was obviously the right call. WrestleMania had to go through a bunch of bullshit. Though that show looked like it came out pretty well. And I watched individual matches from it today that I had read about that people were really excited about. And it's really great that WrestleMania is, in spite of the horrible build and number of bad concepts, um, at the end of the day, it's the men and the women delivering that really makes it great and giving them enough freedom to move. And after having seen a bunch of shows, there were disappointing things in the ICW show, but not many. Um, and really, I'm a big fan of Nolan Edward, and seeing him really have a great week. Where I immediately put him up when Jeff and I were discussing like whose stock rose the most. Jeff's thing was Nolan was already over. But my thing was, yeah, but now the perception of him is different. I mean, he did all those matches, all those shows, told all those stories, worked with everybody. JD Drake, right? Worked with Dan Moff. And just killed it. He did tag matches, he did intergender matches, he did intergender death matches where I thought he made her look and just look great and she looked great and he's working with people and then getting that win over Dan Moff I thought was really cool. Um but you know who had the best WrestleMania week? It's like actually just the single best single day, and it's Tank and Dan, especially Tank. Um if I'm being honest, I thought Tank was just going to. I mean, and this is no knock, but like New Jack did exactly what you thought he was going to do, and I can't believe people are acting like they're disappointed. I mean, he's broken down, and so yeah, he came out, he threw his trash can full of stuff in the ring, and then he went in there and beat some people up and then cut an inappropriate promo. Like that's what he can do. And honestly, I thought Tank would do some variation of that, but it was the opposite. One called Manders, who I've read about and a lot of people have said is so great. And he was a great first opponent for Tank in the afternoon show. And they ripped it up and they provided something different on that Beer House show, that Tony Depp and Beer House show. Um, and it was definitely that air of like, oh, hard hitting legitimacy that really buoyed that card. But in ICW, the expectations were so much, and Neil Diamond Cutter, getting to talk with that guy was one of the bizarre highlights of the last few days. Um, but him wrestling Tank and them absolutely murdering it. Um, was so satisfying. And Tank and I are two people who had never met, and we kind of admired each other from afar. I can't really speak for him. I shouldn't say he admired me. I certainly admired him. We're both very vocal and forthright in our opinions about what wrestling is, and for us to be in the same place, same time, was really great. Um, Another cool thing is there's people who sort of I know opinions of me vary, and I if it isn't clear, I don't give a fuck. What most people think. But it was really great seeing Scott Hensley, especially in the context of his wife and his kid, and then Matt Griffin and Dylan Hales, um, guys that I really got to meet, get to know a little bit. They're It's not that anything about them surprised me. Maybe Dylan Hales a little bit because I didn't know him nearly as well. Um, it's not that anything about them surprised me, meaning Hensley or Matt Griffin. Um, but it was fun to see it sort of play out in the context of me being there and the two of us having a conversation. Uh, and sort of getting to know the wrestlers that I sort of know and have met before. Or it's like Casey and Brandon or Nolan. Um, but what was fun for me ultimately, and I mean, you can imagine that this full disclosure on Monday is going to be bonkers. Of course, it's going to be fucking bonkers. I got so much to talk about, and the Patreon thing that I'm going to put together with these sort of like candid pictures that I got and pictures that I wasn't supposed to get, that I got. Um, I really came into my own because I had to find a way to make myself useful. My role was not explicitly spelled out. That's not how Ron works. Ron just wanted me there, just in case of stuff, to make judgment calls on some things. But really, I think what he wanted me there for was to just float around and find where I was the most useful. And this might shock people because, again, I've run my own promotions. I've booked, I've promoted, I've done literally everything that you can do in wrestling. Ring announced, commentated thousands and thousands of hours, wrestled, trained people, and produced segments. But my role in this wasn't any of those really. And so there was, of course, the great cleanup fiasco that I took it upon myself to do, and I'm glad I did it. And but more than that, the role that I had, I realized was it was way out of my comfort zone, which is basically live tweeting and updating everybody on what's going on the show and hyping the show, but also finding those poignant moments where I thought I could elevate what was going on instead of just saying, oh my God, Nolan beat Dan Moff. To me, that's less interesting for somebody that doesn't necessarily know ICW. And it's something that they can see themselves. It's like what I say about commentators. If you're just telling us what we're seeing visually, that's not interesting. And it isn't always about editorializing either. But I wanted to come up with another way, which was just short stories, because that's what tweets really are, right? Of capturing a mood and amplifying it. Right? So the moment where the crowd appreciates Nolan because they understand on multiple layers what he's been through throughout having more than 10, maybe more than 12 WrestleMania week matches of different stripes. I mean, there's maybe people who wrestled more matches, but nobody wrestled the complex myriad and the variety that he did and went through as much as he did. And he didn't shortcut any of it, you know. And part of it is luck. Like when I look at Brandon Kirk getting his nose busted and all that stuff, that definitely stopped him from being able to do what he would have normally wanted to do in that ICW show last night. And they made it work, but like Nolan avoided all those pitfalls and he's just a tough kid. And I kid, so patronizing, but it kind of fits him actually. um but it's just the moment where the crowd's showing true appreciation, that 6 or 7 second clip, and then writing and putting things in context. Or I was really proud of the series that I did about Casey, how like everybody's like, there's no heels, but she's a heel and she gets it. And then having that moment where she wrestled that great match. The Beer House show was the biggest surprise in that I thought it wasn't gonna be I thought it was gonna be this sort of weird showcase of just different things smattered together, and that's what it was, but the work was exceptional. And the two matches with the women in particular, I thought really stood out. Um, I was glad to chronicle all, and that was supposed to be my relax. I'm not working, but then I found myself, fuck it, I'm tweeting anyway. That's become sort of a part wired into my DNA. Is really going. I can just stand here for the shows and make sure that certain people have water or beer or whatever, or I can do that plus really contribute and maybe show them a new way to approach using social media in the context and during the shows, not only so people are engaged in what you're doing. Like I was proud when I would look at my Twitter feed and I would see almost as many things about the show that I was tweeting about than I would something like WrestleMania as it was going on. And I thought like that feels very successful to me. Plus, it's a way to connect to the wrestlers. Plus, it shows them some love. I think they got it that like, all right, Steve is here to not kiss our ass, but to highlight the great things that happen and give it a permanent record and then give it context. It's so important. It's why Larry is so important in Georgia wrestling history. It's invaluable. Um, and now I've figured out a new role and something else I am good at doing, which is I am good with language and I am good with words. And if I can grab people and pull them in and make them interested, if I can make a noise over here for whoever I'm working for, to draw focus over there for a moment, then it's up to the guys. I'm not doing anything except for highlighting, um, spotlighting, and making impressions in people's brains, inceptioning this idea of how I see wrestling into them, and making them feel a part of what's going on, even if they're not there. And I would imagine in this day and age, it's probably the most valuable thing that I could learn and exercise and put into my skill set because it's very real. So that's exciting. But I'm gonna have lunch, hopefully, uh, with Steve, and then hopefully I'm going to WrestleMania. But in any case, you're gonna probably get one more of these, and then that will be the last one. And then tomorrow we just roll back into it with full disclosure, and we get our week going. A lot of people have sent me stuff to look at as far as promos and matches and all that kind of thing, and that's wonderful. And for the people who are updating me on what's going on in Georgia wrestling, to make sure they get it in on full disclosure, I think that's really great. Continue to do that too. Um, but it's been a lot. And last night was the first time I got like a satisfactory amount of sleep. I did sleep the day before. Jeff actually had to wake me up, which is never happens. Um, but he's on his journey home, as are Dan and Tank. But I'm still here plugging along. My WrestleMania week war journal is not done yet.